All right, welcome everyone. It's been a fun day so far, and I've learned some great things. So I've titled my presentation today, Designing a GE Explorations Course, What, Why, How, but we're actually going to do it, What, How. Did I already redo it? No, it's What, Why, How. It's different from how it's advertised. So I'm going to take you through those, but we're also going to wait or have some time reserved at the end. I'm actually going to try to reserve 20 minutes at the end, where I'm going to give you a chance to, on your own or with someone who's near you in this room, talk about some ideas. See if you can come up with a way you might take a course that you're teaching right now that you think might potentially be a good fit for explorations, and see what you do to make it work. So let's go right into what. So what is GE Explorations? We got a pretty good introduction to this this morning from Chip Oscarson, telling you basically how explorations forms really the core of the new GE program. So here we've got on the screen kind of a vertical layout of what that program is going to look like. And GE Explorations fits into the category of arts and letters, which is 6 separate courses. 3 of them are perspectives courses, which in many ways are the kinds of courses that are currently being taught in GE, very discipline-centered courses. But the other 3 are kind of a new creature. Those are explorations courses. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Something you should know also is that one of those 3 explorations courses needs to be a freshman seminar. The idea is to kind of launch them into their BYU experience with a combination of how do you do BYU and what is an explorations course? How is this going to fit into my GE and my BYU experience? Another thing to be aware of is that there are 2 certifications that are required in GE. One is the Global Outlook. The other one is Diversity, Unity, and Belonging. And so those certifications can be attached to either a perspectives course or a explorations course, but they're not automatically attached. And students don't get to just decide which one is going to count. If you're teaching an explorations course and you want it to also count for diversity, unity, and belonging, then you would need to apply for that certification and demonstrate how your course is going to meet those outcomes as well as the outcomes of it. All right, so here's one that's probably hard for you to read. It might be hard for me to read too. But just to kind of show you, we've got a number of different ways. Let me go back there and, oh, it's not there. Not there. I'll go back here. A number of different ways to kind of explain to you how explorations work. And this is kind of our big exploration description as appears in kind of our latest version of the foundation. So I'm just going to read it to you, kind of think about how your course might fit into these general outlines. So GE Explorations courses transcend disciplinary boundaries to ask big questions and address pressing problems. Course instructors use an inquiry-driven approach that requires students to purposefully frame questions, research solutions, and posit new hypotheses. They should teach students the art of engaging difficult and important questions in prayerful, faithful ways, and create knowledge by reason and by revelation that can lead to further inspiration. Ideally, classes will be constructed in ways that hew close to faculty interests and research and give students both valuable experience in the way that new knowledge is created and a firsthand view of how the gospel can inform both contemporary and enduring questions. Every student will take one GE Explorations course from each of the following. So let's pause there for a minute. Hopefully you can see that this is combining some of the key elements of the GE program, which has intellectual aspects. In fact, I'll show you this later, but we talk about intellectual character building, intellectual perspective, various ways of coming at something intellectually, but also we are concerned about the spiritual education of students. And we think that this is a really great way to help students learn how to grapple with some of the big questions and problems that they may face, both here at BYU and in the real world afterwards, in ways that draw both from and across disciplines and from their education in the gospel. So those three categories: creativity and the arts, remembering the past and shaping the future, and science and technology and society. They line up with those perspectives categories, but in explorations, we actually think that there may be some kind of cross fertilization. You might get, for instance, someone from the College of Family, Home, and Social Sciences who's teaching a creativity in the arts course. You might get someone from Family, Home, and Social Sciences who's teaching a science and technology course, depending on what their research interests are. So that's a possibility. All right. Why do it? So that's kind of the how, and we'll have time for questions later as well. Why? One of the reasons why we think that this new GE program is valuable is that it brings us into closer alignment with both the BYU aims, which haven't really changed, though some of the wording has changed, and something that President Worthen and other leaders have been stressing a lot lately, which is President Kimball's second century address and those second century goals. I think it's worth going through these, just reading them. So these are the 6 learning outcomes for the new GE program, and they are very much aligned with the BYU aims and also have a lot of echoes of that second century. So first, spiritually strengthening. Students will build a testimony of Jesus Christ and grow in their love of God and others through a study of the gospel and an engagement with the most important developments. We're linking those. 2, intellectually enlarging. Skills, and this is the skills aspect of it. In the pursuit of truth, students will think soundly, identify trustworthy information, that's information literacy, communicate effectively, evaluate arguments, and reason proficiently in quantitative terms to address real-world problems. 3, intellectually enlarging breadth. In light of the truths of the restored gospel, students will critically examine contemporary and enduring questions through the arts, humanities, and natural and social sciences. So that's our liberal arts there. But again, we're combining it with the gospel in ways we want students to realize that these are not separate worlds necessarily. They can bring them together. 4, intellectually enlarging perspective. Students will demonstrate the skills, knowledge, and dispositions to understand important ideas in their own cultural traditions, as well as those of others, enabling them to build compassionate and just. So that's really pulling in the global outlook, the civic kind of component of GE, and also the diversity, unity, and belonging idea. We really want them to become proficient and comfortable at becoming acquainted with and incorporating the viewpoints of other peoples and cultures. Okay, 5, character building. Students will demonstrate a Christ-like love of all God's creations, treat others with dignity and respect, and cultivate strong moral character in the development of the total person. 6, lifelong learning and service. Students will know how to seek knowledge, fortify faith, and bring strength to others in the tasks of family life, social relationships, civic duty, the church, and service to men. So again, this is the set of learning outcomes for the GE program writ large. At each level of the additional categories in GE, there will be another set of learning outcomes and suggestions for incorporating these courses. I'm going to show you some of these today. They're still in draft form, so be aware this may not be how they eventually turn out, but it's what we're working on. All right, that was one of the reasons, one of the whys that we're doing this, but there are obviously some other ones too, including we hope that the explorations courses will help lay a foundation for both GE as a whole and the entire BYU experience. Getting students from the gate, from into the habit of thinking about their education in this integrated way, and being able to think in kind of cross-disciplinary. You know, how do you understand this pressing problem, both in a kind of artistic way and in a technological way? Preparing them to be able to face those kind of problems when they leave BYU, looking broadly, not narrowly. So Explorations does that by being a freshman seminar, being right at the core. And then there are 3 Explorations experiences which will push them to think broadly within and across those experiences. Another thing we hope it will do is break down silos, promote interdisciplinary thinking, prepare them to grapple with these real world problems and lifelong learning and service, as I mentioned. And I decided to borrow Chip's great scripture there, that ye may be prepared in all things to magnify the calling whereunto I've called you and the mission. And then finally, and this is the one that we tend to think of first, I think it's valid to think of this one, which is these exploration courses will be taken by everyone at the university, and they're an opportunity for you to showcase the unique strengths of your college and department. We don't want you to teach them like a disciplinary course, but you are going to teach them based on your experience, and that's going to engage students, and no doubt, many of them will want to come and take more classes. All right, how to do it. So this is the crux. So first off, there are several models for how to build an explorations course. One is to adapt a current class. Many of you are already teaching classes that probably fit what we have imagined an exploration class to be. Inquiry-driven, taking some problem, whether it may be the persistence of racism or how pollution affects public health or anything like that, and approaching it from many different directions. So maybe it won't require much adaptation, or maybe it will require more. Another is to just start from scratch, create a brand new class. A third, and there may be more, is to collaborate on a class with colleagues. The honors program has been doing that for a number of years now, doing unexpected connections courses where they might take a biologist and a creative writer, for instance, and put them together, and they come up with a syllabus and help students approach the material from that broad interdisciplinary lens. How many of you have taught an unexpected connections course? Okay, so there's several in here already. Those are the kinds of courses that we think could be adapted into these learning explorations courses. You may not be able to teach them as a team. You may have to do that individually, or maybe you could, especially if you had a large class. But they are intended to help kind of be a seed bed for this kind of development. Okay, guidelines. We are working hard to come up with materials for you that can help you think through this process. One is descriptions. So it mentioned foundation documents. We are working on foundation documents for each of these categories and courses, and they include descriptions, like the one I read to you, a general outline of what explorations courses are writ large, a more specific description of how one particular learning explorations category might be. So for instance, remembering the past and shaping the future. What are we looking for in that? And then we have learning outcomes in each of these foundation documents, some brief course characteristics, and we've also been thinking about sample classes, coming up with lists of classes that most of them are just kind of imagined, but topics that might fit. So here is an example of a description, and I took it from my category. So I'm in College of Family, Home, and Social Sciences, and I teach history. So the category that fits my interests most is remembering the past and shaping the future. And this is the most recent description that we've written of that particular one of 3 explorations courses. So remembering the past and shaping the future courses explore how approaches to a pressing issue or enduring question have changed over time and how they might be approached in the future, contributing to historical perspective and global awareness, key aspects of an intellectually enlarging education. In addition to examining the historical context of an issue or question, instructors should highlight the ways that different fields evaluate the issue and formulate possible solutions. Evaluation should include how different racial, cultural, gender, class, religious, political, and/or other groups at the local, national, and global levels have been impacted by or contributed to the issue or question addressed in the course. Courses should also help students consider how a restored gospel perspective might inform the issue and shape solutions. That's a lot. And it's unlikely that every course will be able to cover all of those, but the idea is to get you thinking broadly. How could you bring a large number of perspectives to bear on this particular pressing issue or enduring? Right, here is the next 2. So learning outcomes and course characteristics. So the learning outcomes, we've actually worked pretty closely with the teams that are working on the 3 separate learning or explorations categories to kind of align those outcomes. So they are actually very similar across all 3 categories with some differences based on the disciplines that are likely to be involved. And then course characteristics. So I don't know if you can see that. Is it pretty small? You can see it? Okay. So let's go ahead and just go through them. And again, this is an example from just one of the categories. As we go through them, please think about how the idea that you may have had or hopefully will have about the course you might like to teach would fit these categories. Okay, these are taken again from the Remembering the Past and Shaping the Future course. So by the end of this course, students will be able to apply relevant historical knowledge and a range of social science disciplinary methods to explore a question, theme, or topic. 2, frame questions, locate and evaluate evidence, and develop arguments that account for relevant historical and societal context, opposing views, and personal and disciplinary bias. 3, recognize and integrate different ways of knowing, including appropriate approaches rooted in the gospel of Jesus Christ as they analyze a question, theme, or topic. And then 4, communicate conclusions in oral, visual, or written formats using relevant vocabulary and judicious interpretation. Okay, well, those are fairly general. You can probably imagine how you would fit yours into that. Course characteristics, many of these are shared across the categories as well. One of the main ones is these are GE courses. So they need to be accessible to non-majors and freshmen and should not require any prerequisites. So as you shape these courses, keep that in mind. They need to be prepared to take the class without having taken one of your major courses. They should be spiritually strengthening, assisting students in approaching problems using the principles and practices of the restored gospel of Jesus Christ, including respect for the natural world and for diverse individuals, cultures, and perspectives, ethical stewardship within families, communities, and nations, and a commitment to help all people achieve their potential as children. That's just a reminder of the way we want to integrate the intellectual and spiritual. And then each category has some general notes. For instance, obviously this category needs historical perspective, but doesn't necessarily have to be taught by a historian. Okay, next. As I said, we've come up with some samples in each of these categories. If you're interested in some more than what I'm just going to show you now, contact me. I'd be happy to send them to you. But here's just one example. I put together kind of a table of courses from my college, Family, Home, and Social Sciences, from each department. The ones that say actual are actual course descriptions as they appear in the catalog. And then based on that, I adapted the course and imagined, here's what that would look like if you changed it into an exploration course. So here's the actual course: economic principles and problems. Strengths and weaknesses of markets and governments for solving problems of social organization or conflict, including policy response to inflation, unemployment, pollution, poverty, growth, etc. So you get a sense of the range of topics that's being covered in that econ class. Here's an explorations approach. This course explores the questions: what are the costs of pollution? Who gets to pollute and who pays the cost? It examines these questions from a number of angles, including public health, the environment, economic productivity, and stewardship within a gospel context. Okay, so you can imagine an economist teaching this course, or potentially someone from biology, or who's got an ecological perspective, but is considering these other topics and bringing in perspective. So that's a sample. Now, these are a little harder to read, and I'm not going to read them out loud, but I'm just going to put them up on the screen. So these are learning outcomes. Again, these are draft versions across all three explorations categories. And you can see they're very parallel, with a few kind of disciplinary distinctions in terminology. So what I would like you to do now, as I said, I was going to give you at least 20 minutes, is think about how an idea you have or a course you're currently teaching might fit into one of these three categories. And you can do it on your own if you've already got ideas, or you can grab someone in the room or next to you and talk about how you might want to do this. I'll give you 10 minutes to do that. And then I would like us to come back together and share some of those ideas. And I might even stand over there and type them in my PowerPoint so we can kind of share and keep some of those ideas. Before you do that, does anyone have any questions or clarifications that they need to address? Yes. Yes. Yes, that's the idea. We have some questions might be bigger. For instance, if someone says, what does it mean to be human? That's a broad topic, but it's an enduring question. You would probably have to find some fairly narrow ways to get into it, but then try to draw across disciplines to answer. Yes. We have talked about trying to create opportunities to teach various courses in the language. Most of those tend to fit into the perspectives category. I could imagine there being a possibility for an explorations one, but it would limit the number of people who could take it. Chip, do you want to weigh in on that? Yeah, that's the limitation. Yeah. You'd have to draw from all of those and pull them into one time in one classroom, which might be very difficult. Any other questions? Glenn, and then. When we first started talking about it, we did contemplate that possibility. Students will not be able to get credit in all three by taking the course. Yeah. 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 Uh, That sounds like it would be a great conversation to have. Yeah. Yeah. You had a question. Go back to this. So this is, I made up that chart and I've got 6 other courses that I didn't put up here to try to show the difference. So the perspectives course, it's covering a broad number of topics under economic principles and problems using methodologies from econ. The other one has a narrow question, but broad kind of reach in terms of what kinds of disciplines or methodologies they might bring to bear to answer that question. And does it help to see those 2 differences? If it would help more, email me and I'll send you the bigger list. I couldn't fit on the slide. Yeah. It could be, yeah. Yeah. That's a good suggestion. This, as I keep mentioning, this is, these are, a lot of these are still in draft. And that first description comes from about 6 months ago. And these learning outcomes come from about 6 days ago. So we're evolving and we hope to bring things into closer harmony throughout the whole list of descriptions. It could be an issue. We still like the idea of, as I've been talking, but yes, an issue or a theme could fit that category. Yes. Yeah. A good suggestion. And that's kind of, as I said, each category has some samples and we will probably include some of that material. Be helpful to get people thinking. Any other questions? All right. Oh, one more and then we'll go to the 10 minutes. Yes. It's through the FGEC. Certainly departments should be talking about these things, about how they will fit into your curriculum, because undoubtedly departments will want to maybe use an explorations course for something that's a departmental function as well as a GE function in some cases. But the approval will come through the FGEC. Okay, let's take those 10 minutes. So we will go until just before 5 minutes to. Do we end at 2 or 10? Oh, we do. Oh my goodness. All right, we're going to take 5 minutes because I really want to hear your ideas. So take 5 minutes, talk with someone else or think about what you might want to do, and then we'll come back together again and collect some of those ideas. So I know you just barely got started talking about these ideas, but I want to bring us together and share some of the things that have been discussed. And I'm going to be over here hiding in the corner because I want to type them in as I hear them. So what kinds of ideas have you come up with of courses that you think might be able to work as an explorations course? Yes. Okay. So what do you imagine so it sounds like the Scandinavian immigration to the US is kind of the historical aspect of it. So you're thinking this would probably be in the remembering the past and shaping the future. Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. That's the only hand I saw. Was there another one? Yeah, I think so. What do you think? Which category would that go in? Creativity in the arts, remembering the past, shaping the future, thinking. Yeah, it depends on how you put it together. Okay, cool. Anyone else? Yes.
So I'm a civil engineer. So
Who pays for it? What was the last one again?
who's affected?
Who is affected? Okay, good. And which category do you think you want to put that in?
Right.
That makes sense. Okay, great. Anyone else? Yes. That sounds fun. And Glenn was wondering, science and technology in society or remembering the past, shaping the future? Back here, yes. Hey, that sounds really interesting. Can you think of kind of a guiding question for that? Okay. Depending on how you say that, it's a different kind of course. Okay. Okay, good. Yeah. So that one sounds like one that could clearly be a candidate for the DUB designation. So great, thank you. Yes.
That's first. I think. Yeah, but the thing about doing that, but imposing our social historical are very part of the social in service projects that small.
Interesting. Great, thanks. Maybe we've got time for one more. I want to, yes. I would like to take that class. So that's a very narrow question, but just list some of the perspectives you might draw into that. Yeah, good. And I imagine you could bring in environmental perspectives, art, there's all kinds of ways you could look at this. But we are out of time. I would love to hear your other ideas. Go ahead and if you could email them to me, I'll add them to my PowerPoint. And also be aware you're welcome to email me or your college representative or anyone who serves on the FGEC to ask for more clarification about this. There's not a whole lot we can get done in 50 minutes, but hopefully this has sparked some interest. We would love to get your proposals for learning expert courses. Thanks.